guy. I got a friend of mine. He's making a $3,000. All right, we're gonna get started. Am I going through here? You got me? Okay, I'm good. I just didn't hear it. So make sure I'm all right. What's that? Yeah. Maybe I need to do the class right before the golf round. Get somewhere in here. I don't know. Um, it's all right. It's all good. I told them today I did a little video here in church. I told them, I said, there's no saying sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the bug. I feel like this week I've been the bug a lot. It's been one of those weeks where everything seems to just be kind of going apart. But that's why you have Wednesday nights. You need a little refresher to kind of get you going and to help you. So we're in week 4 of this. Just some little cool thing. As you know, this Rick Burgess on Rick and Bubba talks about this a lot. So I sent him an email today, just kind of telling him about going through the praying, because I saw him preach here a while back, and I told him that I'd kind of been looking at this curriculum for a while, because I've been wanting to do something for men, and we've met, we went through Man in the Mirror, and it was real good. It just wasn't that long, and but I've been wanting to do something kind of that's kind of put together. But to be honest with you, Rick being Baptist, I just kind of I was kind of leery of what goes on. Not there's nothing wrong, but I in theology, I've heard me say this before. You have national boundaries and state boundaries. Okay, in a country, we have wars over national boundaries, and you have to have a passport, at least you used to come into a country. Or go out of a country, but state borders, you ain't got to show your passport to go to Georgia. As a matter of fact, if you go up through Scottsboro and go up that way, you'll go through Georgia twice, Tennessee, and all that. So, and if you don't pay attention to signs, you don't know you did it. Why? Because state borders aren't really that vital. Well, it's kind of like that in church, in theology. There's state borders that different people we can interpret things a little differently, like how we worship. And there's if you a church we got a church up the street, great little church, they sing nothing but hymnals. That's all they do, and don't want to do anything else. Nothing wrong with that if that's your style, that's the way you want to do. So worship styles can be different. There's some other things can be different. We can disagree on, but then you got national borders. Now, national borders we have to fight for. The virgin birth, that's a national border. Okay, there's only one way to salvation, Jesus Christ. That's the national border. We cannot, we don't believe there's multiple ways, and so that's a point. And so with that said, in my thoughts, I said, well, there's probably some state border stuff. There's probably denominational stuff in this, and so I was leery of it. And the Spirit of the Lord just kind of unched me after I heard Rick preach, and so I went with this, and I read all through the material, and there's really none of that in there. There's no church doctrine really in it as far as that in the lesson. It's really kind of Christian universal about how to be a man of God, a God-fearing man. And so I think through all of this we're going to get some good. So I kind of gave him an email, said, hey, I'm Pentecost pastor. I just want to let you know we're doing this and we're really excited about it. And he sent me back. He wrote me back about 15 minutes later. He sent me back and just told me, he was so excited. And the real cool things, it wasn't like a form letter, so I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And so I just thought I'd throw that in there for you Rick and Bubba fans. He was pretty stoked about it. And so we've been talking about this, and so I want us to get more guys. I wish every man was here, because I really think it's important, and I think it's really vital. So if you guys can help me with that, just kind of encourage some guys to be here. I know we used to have a pretty good group, and COVID's kind of messed us, and people have gotten out of the habit, and it's kind of back to the old thing, we do what we want to do, so we got to get them to want to do. and see, this is worth the investment. It's worth your time. And so to how to be a better man. So that's what we've been looking, how to be a better man. And as we do every week, we kind of give you a little something to understand. And you have to understand the only way that we can be better men is to pursue a Christ-centered masculinity. We got to do it with Christ in the center of it. What does Christ say? And how does he live and how does he operate? So tonight we're going to look at a couple group scripture, but our main one's going to be found in Mark chapter 9 and verse 33, and it reads like this. And they came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, what were they ye reasoning on the way? What were you arguing about, really, is what he asked them. And but they held their peace, for they had disputed one with another on the way of who was the greatest. And he sat down and called the 12, and saith unto them, if any man would be first, he shall be last of all and servant of all. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to read the rest of it in a minute. But he said, any man who would be first, a leader, we could say, is going to be last, and he's going to be a servant of all. So here we have the disciples that are arguing over who is the greatest of the disciples. Okay, it's kind of like, I don't know, two worms arguing over which worm's better, I guess. But they're having an argument over who's the greatest because they don't understand the kingdom principles. They don't understand the kingdom dynamics of leadership in what Jesus is saying. And so Jesus says, listen, if you really are going to be great, you got to be servants. You got to serve. So Jesus gives us the identity of a God-fearing man that follows him when he says you have to be a servant leader. If you're going to lead, you got to lead from a position of servants. And let me just say, it's good to have everybody online. I know there's a few of you online watching tonight. We're glad you're here. You got to be a servant leader. You can't lead, and when we say leader, let's don't get in the mindset, well, I'm not really a leader. You're leading your family. You're leading your people that you have influence with. But if you don't lead nothing else, you're leading your family. And so we're going to talk about that servanthood. And so Jesus lets us know serving others, it has to be in the spiritual DNA of every Christian, but especially in a God-fearing man. And we're talking men. We have to have serving in our DNA. We have to. We cannot be a God-fearing man, an effective Christian, an effective husband, an effective Christian father, grandfather, whatever you want, if we don't have a servant's heart. And that's what Jesus shows us in his life. And for most men, if we were honest with each other, which we very seldom are when it comes to our feelings and all, or what we struggle with, but most of us, I guarantee you, we struggle with this one sometimes. We struggle with it. Because every one of us, by nature, is selfish. By nature, our old man wants to be selfish. And the only reason we're not is because of Christ. Now, there's some people that are generous, that aren't Christians and all of that. But in ourselves, we look to please us. We look to say, what's in it for me? What's this going to do for me? What's this going to do for me and mine? How is this going to help us? How is this going to help me? And so we just struggle because we have desires, and if we're not careful, we put our desires first. And Jesus is saying, no. If you're going to be a God-fearing man, you've got to flip that around. You've got to be willing to serve first. And I have to do for me and mine, many people say, and I have to make sure that I'm taken care of first. But Jesus said, no, in the kingdom of God, to be great, you have to be last. To be great, you have to serve. To be great, you got to give. To be great, you got to pour yourself out. And then Jesus goes out and shows us how to do this by giving himself for us. Here, the Son of God, the King of Kings, that has always been the King of Kings, yet Jesus gives his life so that you and I might have a chance at life through his salvation. He puts our needs ahead of his needs. He puts our needs and our welfare ahead of his needs and his welfare because he serves and because of his love for us. And so Jesus gives his life so we might have life. And so here's our first kind of question for you to ponder, not to answer. Is that your identity? Is that my identity? Is my identity that I put my life last and my desires last, that I can serve the needs of those I'm leading and the needs of other people? Am I being Christ-like? Am I pursuing a Christ-centered masculinity where I'm serving rather than looking to be served? And I ask people, if I ask people around you and in your life, is he a servant? If they felt that you put their needs ahead of your needs, what would their answer be? See, one of the things that we are doing here is we're looking not at what we say we believe, but what we live every day. See, because I can say I believe, yeah, I'm a servant, but does the person that lives with me think I'm a servant? Does the people in my neighborhood think I'm a servant? Do the people on my job see me as a servant? Do they see that heart in me? Do they see that in me? Because if they don't see it in me, then it really doesn't, nothing else matters. It's kind of like the story I heard of the guy that was a football coach of a very, very prominent school, not a Division I, but Division II school, but very prominent. And they talked about a salesman walked in to sell him some equipment, and he knew, they told him he's in the building, so he knew he was in there. He couldn't find him. He wasn't in his office. He wasn't in the training room. He wasn't anywhere. And so he starts calling him, and all of a sudden the coach answers him. And so he starts following his voice, and he goes to the bathroom, and here the coach is cleaning toilets. Now, this head coach of a university, and the guy's kind of taken by it, and finally, after talking to him, he says, "Hey, why are you in here cleaning the bathroom?" And the coach's reply is, "It's my turn." In other words, the whole staff took a turn cleaning the bathroom, and the head coach, who could have not done it, said, "It's my turn." And the point of that story was his staff would go through a brick wall for that guy. Because why? Because he served. He knew how to be a servant leader and to do things the right way and to serve. And Jesus shows us this. Jesus is so much a servant that just before he dies a terrible death on his last day before the crucifixion, the last thing Jesus does before he goes to Gethsemane to pray is he takes a towel, steps away from the table, gets a basin of water, and begins to wash the feet of the disciples. You have the King of Kings washing the feet of his disciples. Now, for us to really grab that, we have to understand that washing of the feet in that day was done by the lowest of servants. I mean, if you had a slave, it would have to be the bottom row slave. If you had a servant, it had to be the guy that just got hired last week. I mean, this guy, it's the guy that can't do nothing else. That's who washes feet. Because nobody wants to wash feet, okay? Especially stinky feet like they have. They're wearing sandals. They're nasty. And here Jesus is washing their feet. What always gets me about that, in John chapter 13, what always gets me about that is when I come to the realization that he doesn't just wash the feet of the people that like him. He washes the feet of the one that's going to betray him. Because later on he talks about Judas being there. He washes Judas's feet. He knows Peter's going to deny him. He knows Thomas is going to doubt him. And he knows Judas is going to betray him. And yet Jesus washes their feet. He serves them. Here the Son of God, their rabbi, that if they didn't even know he was Son of God yet, if that hadn't even come to him yet, he's their rabbi. He's the leader. And he's washing the feet of his disciples. Think about that. Here's Jesus the King, not only washing the disciples that love him, but washing the feet of those that are going to betray him, showing us that we have to serve with a pure heart, no matter what the motives of those we're serving is. No matter what they are. Do people think of you as a servant? Would your family say that you put their needs ahead of your needs? Or are you the guy that the family's always got to do what you want to do? I've met some guys that if they go on vacation, they go where they want, and their family just has to come with them. They go to eat, they go where they want, and their family better like what they like. They're always doing what they want. But that's not the servant heart, is it? Just an example, we go to the beach. Matter of fact, we're going to go in a couple of weeks. I don't know, family vacation. So y'all pray for me that I make it through the family vacation. Because we're going to have all the kids and all the grandkids in a condo. So it's going to be exciting. And, and so, but we're going to the beach. Now, I don't really like the beach. Never have. It's just not my thing. I don't like dirt. I don't like the sand in my toes. I don't like that. The ocean makes me feel sticky and nasty, so I don't really care for that. And if it's cool outside, now I enjoy going to the beach when nobody's there and it's about 55 degrees, 60 degrees, and I can just sit there and look at it. It's beautiful, and I can read a book and I can just sit there and I don't mind that at all. But when it's 900 degrees on the deck, I just don't. It's not feeling. But my family loves it. My kids always loved it. My wife just adores it. I think she would move down there. She's told me if I ever die, she's moving to the beach. And she probably would. So she loves it. So what do? We go to the beach. Because it's not about me. They all love it. I can be okay. Because to be honest, I don't know if I love a lot of things that going away. But so we do it. We do it to serve our family. And all of us do things like that. But we got to have that servant heart. Would our friends say that we're a servant, that we have a servant's heart? You see, being a servant is part of being the man of God that he wants us to be. In Ephesians 5, Paul gives us kind of an order of the family. He gives us kind of this order. Now, culture don't like this, but it's because culture don't understand it. Because if they truly understood it, even a feminist, if they truly understood Ephesians 5 and what Paul's saying, they would fall in love with this, of what Paul's telling us. The part they don't like is when Paul says, wives, submit unto your husband, to your own husband, he says. Not somebody else's husband, submit unto your own husband. And he's not necessarily women submit to men. He says, wives, submit to your husband, okay? So he's telling them to do that. Now, he says, as the church, as Christ with the church, but we could even go a little further. We could show Christ as being submissive. Because what did Paul say? Paul said in Philippians that Jesus was equal in God. He thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but yet took upon himself number 8. What did he do? He became submissive to the Father. Jesus could have said, look, I'm not submitting to that. I'm as much God as you are. But that's not how God works. Jesus submitted to the will of the Father. I do the will of the Father. What I see him do, I do. And he showed the wife how to be submissive, how to submit. He showed sons how to submit to their father. And so he showed us in this submissive role. And so the wife is to submit to the husband. Now, as guys, we like to stop there sometimes. But then Paul goes on to the husband, and he says, you're supposed to love your wife as Christ loved the church and laid down his life for the church. Now, that laying down our life doesn't merely mean, baby, I'll take a bullet for you. Okay? That's not what he's saying there. He's talking about serving and laying down your will and your desire and your life to serve your wife. We are called to serve as a servant leader our wife. If Jesus served the disciples, I'm supposed to serve those that follow me, that submit to me. And my wife is the number one person. And so we got to do that. When my kids were growing up at home, I come to realize this early in my life, in my marriage, which was a good thing. But I learned this real early, that the number one relationship other than my relationship with God is my relationship with Lenny. My relationship with Lenny is more important than my relationship with my kids. Now, I'm not talking about if Lenny did something bad and all that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a good woman, godly woman. She's more important. I used to tell my kids, number one, I said, hey, clean up after yourself. Your mama's not your maid. She's not your maid. It's not her job to clean up after us. That's not her job. We're grown people. This when they got older. I said, we can clean up our own mess. And I used to tell them all the time, I said, look, if it gets into a debate against you and your mother, I'm with your mother every time. You need to understand that. I'm going to be on her side. And even if I think she's wrong, I'm not going to tell her in front of you. I'm still on her side. I've got her back 100% of the time. Because I had one of my kids, they said, Judy, you'd be against me 100% of the time. I wouldn't even think about it. You know, I'm kind of like the old comedian said, my job is, if she gets on you, my job is like a Goldie, just keep you in play. Because I'm not getting involved. I'm not going to go against her. Now, we always had this rule at my house, and most of you, your kids are grown. John's probably got some that's still around, but most of ours are grown. But at my house, our rule was, look, if I don't like the way you're talking to the kids or you're too rough, I'm never going to tell you in front of them. Now, when we get alone somewhere, I may say, baby, you're a little rough there. I think you're a little rough on them. Now, usually, just be honest, guys, I had wisdom. I waited for her to calm down before I told her that. Didn't tell her because I wasn't going to get her on me. I mean, you know, so I waited till we kind of got her a little breath back. And I didn't tell her that much. She told me that more than I told her. But the thing is because my wife is important. And so I have to serve. You remember the mother of John, and I'm going to bring this together, then we're going to get into some questions. The mother of John, Zebedee's wife, she comes to Jesus one day and she says, hey, I want to know something. I want to know about this kingdom thing you got going on. How great my sons are going to be. Because I'd like one of them to sit on your left and one of them to sit on your right when they get to heaven. You know, I think they ought to be in a prestigious place. And I'm paraphrasing. Jesus, he kind of looks at her and he says, you don't understand my kingdom at all. He said, because to be great in my kingdom, you got to be nothing. You got to pour yourself out to nothing, and you got to serve. To be first, you got to be last. You got to give up everything. You have to serve if you're going to lead. And those that are under you are not servants to you, you're servants to them. And so do people see us as servants? Now, I'm not talking about that we give in to every whim of our wife and every whim of our children, every whim of our friends. He's not talking about desire, because guess what? Jesus doesn't give us every whim that we have, right? How many of you know you've prayed for things and God didn't give you it? He didn't give you that. Because number one, it wasn't something important. Number two, you didn't need it. God does say no. I know that's culture. We don't like to hear that. But God does say, no, I'm not doing that. That's not where you need to go. It's not what you need to do. And so God does, and it's not our job to give every whim. It's not my job to give every desire my wife wants. Now, I can meet as many as I can. But right now, Lenny would love to build an in-ground swimming pool. She's always wanted one. I told her, I said, I'm not building an in-ground swimming pool. I'm not doing that. I said, now you're fixing to graduate, you're fixing to get a job. If you want to spend your money making an in-ground swimming pool, I'll clean it, I'll do, but I'm not doing that because I just don't have money putting no in-ground swimming pool, a big hole in the floor. And number one, I don't want to have to fool with it because I know I'm going to have to fool with it. But she loved that. I can't give her that desire. It's not about giving every whim to people. It's about meeting every need. It's about serving. It's about giving ourselves and serving. And so as a servant, we have priorities. And I'm bringing this to an end. We have priorities. Number one, we serve God. That's our first. We serve God. In everything we do, we serve God. That's our first priority. That's over our wife. That's over our kids. That's over everything. Our first priority is we serve God. Our second priority as married men is we serve our wife. Above everything else, above every other person other than God, we serve our wife. Third, we serve our children, our family. Then we serve our friends, our neighbors, then our job, and then et cetera, down the line. That's how serve. The problem comes when we get these priorities out of order. I've seen some men that serve their kids more than they serve their wife. And what happens when their kids get gone? They're sitting across from a stranger. They don't know who they are. I had a couple just the other day, been married 32 years, got a divorce. 32 years. I thought, my Lord, number one, you're too old for anybody to want you. Why are you trying to get married? I mean, what's wrong with you? 32 years. Getting a divorce. Crazy. We get our priorities. We serve our job more than our spouse. Most of us in here, we've been around a little bit. Some of us not. Look, there's nothing wrong. We're supposed to provide for our family. The Bible is very clear on a man that don't provide for his family is worse than an infidel. We all get that. And we're supposed to work hard. We're supposed to provide. I believe we're to try to provide as best we can. But I have never met a woman worth her salt that her husband was a workaholic that wouldn't look at him, and in a New York minute wouldn't say, I'll take less money and more of your time. Never. Brother Philip, I ain't never seen that. I've never seen a man that would go to his wife and say, look, I can cut my hours, we won't make as much time, but I'll be here at home more. I ain't never seen a woman worth salt say, that's what I want. I take that every day. Because your time is more, you are more valuable than what you bring in. You're more valuable than just the dollar bills. You're more valuable than that. And yeah, we got to work. We got to provide. Y'all know me. I believe in being a good provider. I believe in working. But I'll be honest with you, Dale, I've messed that one up. I've messed that one up a lot. I put the work over the family because I thought I got to provide for them. I got to put a help. I got to give them what they want. I got to do all this. And there's been times in my life, and Pastor Lenny would grab a hold of me. She's always been my compass. She'd say, look, you got to stop this. You're gone all the time. We don't need all this. We need you. You got to change something. There was a time in my life I was running a full-time business. I was running a side business that I had, a little consultant business, and I was pastoring a church. And I don't care what you are. There's no such thing as a part-time pastor. It's full-time pastor whether you get paid full-time or not. You're still pastoring full-time. And I was literally, no joke, for about a year there, I worked 7 days a week. 7 days constantly working. Even on Sunday, I was working on something all the time. And I was just trying to get ahead. And finally, Lenny come to me and said, look, I don't care what you got to do. This ain't working. The babies had just been born. We had just started pastoring. And she said, we got to change something. If we got to sell something, if we got to move into a trailer, if we got whatever we got to do, but this is not working. We can't live like this. I don't want an absentee husband, and I don't want to raise kids by myself. And so I had to learn. I had got my priorities of serving wrong. And it was causing me problems. It was causing me trouble. We got to get in right where we want. And we all know men that may be serving in the wrong priorities. And so we've got to get back. So when we get these things out of order, then we're not walking in a Christ-centered identity. Whether you are a leader on your job, your hobby, or just your home, godly leadership is all about serving. And Paul tells the husband to love his wife, but Paul tells the wife to respect her husband. You know, that's a crazy thing. And we're going to go back to Mark 33, or 9:33. Paul says for the husband to love his wife, but the word he uses for the wife to love her husband is respect. It's two different Greek words. And there's a reason for that. It's the way men and women, they're equal, but they're not the same, right? The way they see love. We see love from a respect point of view, right? If your wife don't respect you, you don't think she loves you. You want respect. More than anything else, a man wants respect. And we'll do anything to get respect, but we want respect. And some men think fear is respect, but fear is not necessarily respect. And sometimes I've had men come and say, look, my wife just don't love me. And what they're saying is my wife don't respect me. Now, sometimes we can have they could have a sinful wife. She could just not be doing what's right, okay? It's not always the guy's fault. But then there's other times that maybe the wife don't respect him because she knows him. And he's not living a servanthood life. He's not living in a Christ-centered life. And so there's no respect there. See, when we start living as Christ and we get our priorities right and we start becoming the servant he's called us to do, that respect, that love will always come. It will always come. So let me read the rest of Mark. So Jesus asks them, or tells them, a servant of all. And then in 36, and he said, and he took the little child and set him in the midst of them, and taking him in his arms, he said unto them, whosoever shall receive one of such as this little one in my name receiveth me. And whosoever receiveth me whosoever receiveth me receiveth not me, but him that sent me. So here's some questions. Let's talk a little bit. Why do you think it was important for the disciples to figure out who's the greatest? Group of men. I mean, these are rugged men. These are fishermen. I mean, these are outdoor men. And they're arguing over who's the greatest. Why? Ego. Do we have ego as men? Oh, yeah. Saturday we're going to be on the golf course. You know what you want to do? You want to win. You want to be in first place. There's no money. There's not even a trophy. I guess Larry brings a trophy. Maybe he does. But you just want to be in first. Ego's not bad if you're just friendly competition. But it becomes bad when you start putting yourself ahead of others. When you're wanting to be a leader not to serve, but a leader to be served, and it's wrong. And that's what they were doing. They were competing. They were competing over something they didn't understand. So what was their answer when Jesus said, hey, what are y'all talking about? What are you back there arguing about? What did they say? They didn't say nothing. Why do you think they said nothing? Scared? Guilty? Realized that, hey, we just got caught doing something. Because they knew he knew. They knew he was back there. So now they're like, oh, my Lord. They're embarrassed. They're guilty. Because Jesus knew what they had been discussing. And so they just didn't say nothing. So why does, in this, it's kind of interesting, Jesus brings the child into the conversation. Why do you think he brought the kid into the conversation? He puts the little child in. He said, he talks about, he said, the little child set him in the midst of them, and taking him in his arms, he said unto them, whosoever receiveth one of such as this, whoever, I can't read tonight, whoever shall receive one of such little children in my name receiveth me, and whosoever receiveth me receiveth not me, but him that sent me. Why does he use the child? Yeah. Yeah. The child is lowly, it's weak. The child has to be taken care of. You have to serve a child, right? You got little kids. The other day they bring the grandkids over there. When there's two of them over there, if there's one of them, I can slip off. But there's two of them. Lenny don't let me slip off very often if I'm at home. She's like, look, you got to take care of one of them. Okay, you got to do something. And they're very needy. They're very needy. They need you all the time. They need you to do things. They're needy. You have to serve them. You can't just leave a 3-year-old and say, okay, I'm going to go out here. If you need me, holler. No, you can't do that. And so Jesus is showing them that, hey, you got to receive like this. You got to serve. You got to be willing to serve. Jesus was expounding on the previous sentence where he said the greatest must be servant of all, even little children like this one. You got to be willing to serve the weakest. You got to be willing to give yourself. And it's kind of like kids. I thought about this right before church, right before I come in here, when I was seeing the kids run around. When you're a dad or granddad and you're serving, it's not always fun, right? It's not always fun. They ask for things, even your grown kids, they ask for things that you really don't want to do. I mean, when they call you and say, hey, Daddy, my car's not running. Can you come over here? And I'm like, I got a million things to do right now. But what do? You get in the car and you go over there. Because why? because you love them and you're going to serve them. The same is true with things. I got a call Sunday evening. I got home, then got relaxed, then got feeling good. Locked my chair down to about 3 notches. I was in a good place. They had nothing to do. Got a call. Somebody needed something. Can you come help me? What you do? You get up. You get out of your comfortable clothes. You get back into what you got to get into. You come back to town. Why? Because we serve. Because we want to show the love of Christ. And so serving's not convenient. If what you do is always convenient, that's not serving. That's not serving. Now, serving brings joy with it. We serve people at the food pantry, and I get joy out talking to them. Now, when it's about 100 degrees out there, like it's been the last few weeks, the joy is a little slimmer. But I enjoy that, but it's still serving. I leave Tuesday. There's never a Tuesday I'm not tired. I'm not wore out, especially if we're busy. And if we're not busy, I'm wore out from just sitting there because I can't stand not to be doing something. Can't. But we got to serve. So we got to serve. So why is it important to serve those who cannot offer anything in return, like the little child? It's better to give and receive. Yeah. Anybody else? Why is it that important? Is it truly serving when you're expecting something in return? Not really. That's not serving. That's just me doing you something, doing you a solid, you doing me a solid. I mean, that's payment, really. That's bartering. That's working for somebody and then working for you. That's just trading. We're trading something. I'm giving you something, you give me something. That's not really serving. Serving is when I do something without any expectation. I'm not wanting anything from you. I don't expect anything from you. I'm just serving because that's what I'm supposed to do. So the story of let me read the story of Zebedee, his wife. I got the time. It's found in Matthew 20, 20, and 28. So let me read it, and then we're going to ask some questions about it because it kind of is bearing on this. It says, "Then came to him, to Jesus, the mother of the sons of Zebedee, and with her son." She brings him in tow, worshiping him and asking certain things of him. Now that's kind of always been crazy to me. She's worshiping him, but she's going to ask him something while she's there, okay? I don't know if it's worship if you're coming with a motive, okay? "And he said unto her, What wouldest thou? And she saith unto him, Command that these my 2 sons may sit, one on the right side and one on the left side in thy kingdom. But Jesus answered and said, Ye know not what ye ask. Are ye able to drink the cup that I am about to drink? And they said unto him, We are able," because they don't know what they're getting into. "And he said unto them, My cup indeed ye shall drink, but to sit on my right hand and my left hand is not mine to give, but it is for them for whom it hath been prepared of my Father." And when the 10 heard it, they were moved with indignation concerning the 2 brothers. But Jesus called them unto him and said, Ye know that the ruler of the Gentiles lords over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. Not so shall it be among you, but whosoever would become great among you shall be your servant. And whosoever would be first among you shall be your servant. Even as the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give his life a ransom for many. So based on these verses, what was the purpose of Jesus mentioning the Gentile ruler in his explanation? Why does he mention that? He says, hey, the Gentile rulers lord over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them, but not so in my kingdom. Why does he say that to James and John? Showing the contrast. The way this world works is not the way my kingdom works. If you want to look at it, this world, Jesus' kingdom. It's flipped upside down because we're messed up. He's not. And so he says, in your world, what you're looking at and what you're asking is you think that you're going to rule over people. I've been listening to this podcast. I won't say it's a great podcast, but it's been pretty good. I've been listening to it. I got to where I listen to stuff like that a lot rather than listening to music or anything. And so anyway, but this podcast is about why in church are we following the culture of making celebrities in church. Celebrity pastors, celebrity singers, and it's showing how almost every time we do this, there's a fall. There's a fall. That it just falls because the charisma outruns the character most of the time. And so I got to thinking about that podcast when I was studying this week, and I thought that's exactly what Jesus is talking about. There is no celebrity in the kingdom of God but Jesus. He's it. There's no other celebrity. We can honor people, and we should. We should show honor to people, but not celebrity. We don't celebrate. So anytime that we as a pastor or a church leader begin to lord over people, we've stepped out of the kingdom of God and we've stepped back into a kingdom that's not of God. Now, I'm not talking about we discipline, we correct that. That's church discipline has to be done and things like that. I'm talking about lording over and expecting people to serve the leader. That's not what God called us to do at all. And that's what he's telling these two disciples. He's saying, look, we don't rule that way. In my kingdom, the one that's the leader is the servant to all. We serve everybody. And I think Jesus is thinking, don't y'all see that in me? I mean, don't you see that I'm doing that? One of the great, and I think I've told y'all this before, but one of the great moments of seeing this come to life is on the show The Chosen, where Jesus is, I think it's episode 7 maybe. And if you watch the whole episode, it's kind of a little boring, to be honest, because the whole episode is Jesus has been healing all day. And disciples are going to and fro helping him, John, it's your turn, James, it's your turn, and they're taking turns. And so it's the evening has come, night's coming, they're all around fire, and they're talking, and they're complaining, and they're fussing with each other. I've done more, and they're fussing about Matthew, you're a tax collector, I don't even know why you're here. And then Mary, Jesus' mother, which we don't know if this happened in the Bible or not, but it doesn't take away from theology, but she's telling about Jesus being born, and it's a real moving story, but they go back to fussing, and they're fussing, and all of a sudden Jesus comes walking up, and he has been healing from sun up to sundown. And I don't know, I thought about this in my own little, and Brother Jim, and some of you may have done this too. I thought about my own little nothing of praying for people on an altar. You used to have prayer lines, and you may pray for 2 hours. How exhausting that makes you. It drains you. I can't imagine doing it from sun up to sundown. And Jesus is walking, and they do such a fantastic job of showing him just weary. He's just wore out. I mean, he barely can make it, and he's just doing, and it just gets quiet. Every disciple hushes, and they all got their head. They can't even look at him because of the shame. He's been serving all day, pouring himself out. And he comes in, and I was listening to the director. He said, we started to just have him go in and say goodnight, go into the tent, pass out. But then all of a sudden, the actress that plays Mary, it's really anointed. It is. And she goes and she washes his feet like a mother would her child, taking care of Jesus. And it's just powerful. It's so powerful because it shows you that he gave himself, not just at the cross, he gave himself before the cross. He was the ultimate server. He served. He poured himself out. And that scene in that film just shows you he had nothing left that day to give. There was nothing in him. And sometimes we're more like the disciples, fussing and griping and grumbling. When Jesus says, I want you to serve like me. Because that day miracles were done. And so Jesus is showing them that, hey, to follow me sets you apart, not for being the Lord, Sets you apart for being a servant. That you've got to serve. Why is it important for us to understand that? The two kingdoms, the contrast. Why do we in 2021 church need to know that? As men. Yeah. Don't we have a tendency as men to want to achieve something? And isn't in us that desire gets so much that if we're not careful, we step over people, we do whatever it takes, not in a bad way, and I'm not saying anybody in here in a bad way, but maybe we lose sight of people to where we're trying to be successful, we're trying to get ahead, we're trying to be this, to do better, we're trying to, and if we're not careful, we lose sight of, just like I said, we get things out of order. And I think it's important for us to understand that the way this world operates is not the way we operate. We don't get ahead at any cost. We don't try to manipulate. We don't look for what's best for me, even if it's not best for somebody, even if it's bad for somebody else. We don't operate like that. That's not how we function. It can't be. It can't be how we function. And I think Jesus is trying to show them, and he's trying to show us that, hey, this is not how we flow. This is not how we function. It's not how we move. We have to have that servant heart, to put ourselves on the back, to promote someone else, to help someone else in the need that they have. And so Jesus models this for us. He shows us how to do this. He washes the feet. He serves. He dies. All of this showing us how do we put ourselves last. How do we serve as godly men? Serve our house. Serve our community. A servant's heart. A servant's heart. To be able to look at a situation and to say, okay, I'm leading this. These people are following me. How do I serve them? How do I do better for them? How do I make them successful? And here's the kicker to this. I really thought about this. Kathy Truitt, the guy that owned Chick-fil-A, he's passed away now. But there was never, and I knew, I was personal friends with the guy that owned Chick-fil-A in Columbus, Georgia. He owned 3 of them. And he was personal friends with Kathy Truitt's son, who now is the president of the company. I can't remember his name. But he was, John, I was thinking of John. Robert was good friends with him, grew up with him in Atlanta. Or went to school with him, something. I don't know. They were friends. And you talk to Robert, and man, Truitt Cathy he's the man. And I've talked to Barry Keith, I've talked to other ones. He always made an impact on people. And every time I talk to people, they talk about how he'd help anybody. Even Tab, who was here, went and put a lift in for him. He didn't even know who he was. He didn't even know he was Truitt Cathy. He just went to put a lift when he was putting lifts in, car lifts. And Truitt Cathy was a big car collector, and he wanted to lift in his garage. And Tab said, I didn't even know whose house I went to. I knew it was a big old house. But he said, this old man comes out, and he starts just talking to me and carrying on with me. And he says, hey, y'all want some Chick-fil-A sandwiches? And next thing I know, Chick-fil-A is coming up there delivering us a bunch of sandwiches. And he said, I remember thinking, man, this guy must know them Chick-fil-A people real good. He said, I found out, yeah. He said, and then next thing you know, he said, no, we're up there doing a job. He's paying us. Next thing you know, he said, hey, y'all want to go to Chick-fil-A Bowl, the Peach Bowl? And I said, yeah. He gives us 2 tickets to the Peach Bowl. He said, and then it finally realized this is Kathy Truitt, or Truitt Cathy. And he said he was just a nice guy. He was always, and that was his reputation, always served people. You know what? I realized I realize when you do that as a leader, people want to be on your team. They want to be around you. They respect that. They want to be involved in that. It does, and that's where Jesus was. People come to him because they didn't even know who he was. Some of them, they just came because he was serving. He was loving on people. He was loving on them. So here's the challenge tonight. We always leave with a challenge. Whenever we're faced with the concept like we have been studying tonight, it forces us to respond in a way of evaluation. So as we wrap up, there's 3 questions. What area in my life am I leading selfishly as opposed to selflessly? Is there an area in my life where I'm probably a little more selfish? When I've been guilty of only serving the people whom I can benefit, have I been guilty of only serving the people that benefit me? Because see, it's easy to serve somebody if I think they're going to benefit me. But that's not really service, as we said. Am I guilty of that? And what would I have to do what would I have to sacrifice to become a better servant leader? What change do I have to have? Because that's what this class is all about. It's all about understanding what it means to be a godly man and then making that change, right? That's why we're men. We don't do, as John Kennedy said, we're not going to space because it's easy. We're going because it's hard. That's how we ought to look at our life. I'm serving not because it's easy, serving because it's hard. I want to be challenged. I want to be better. So what is it? What is it that I can change? What sacrifice do I have to make to be a better servant? To serve my family better, to serve my kids better, to serve my grandkids better, serve my work better, serve my friends better, serve the church better. What do I have to sacrifice to do that? See, these are the questions we start asking, and then if we ask them, the Holy Spirit will start showing it to you. You don't have to worry about that. He'll let you know what you're doing. So that's what we want to do. We want to be better servants. We want to serve. We want to serve our wives. We want to serve our kids. We want to serve our friends. We want to serve the church. Most of all, we want to serve God. We want to do it better. Amen. God bless you guys. I'm glad y'all came tonight. Hope you got something out of that.